When I was young, my mother used to tell me, "Nothing in this world is free, son. Everything has a price, even kindness." Back then, I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was being too serious, maybe even cold. I believed the world was kind and fair. I believed that if you helped people, they would help you back. I believed good things came easily to good people. But I was wrong. I learned the meaning of her words the hard way. And after what happened, I still ask myself, was it my fault for trusting too much, or was it just the way the world works? Tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? It started 3 years ago when I was still a student. I came from a small village where life was simple. We didn't have much, but we had each other. My father worked as a mechanic, and my mother sold vegetables in the local market. I was their only child, and they dreamed of seeing me get a good education. So when I got a small scholarship to study in the city, they were overjoyed. It wasn't a full scholarship. It covered my tuition, but I had to manage food, rent, and books on my own. Still, I was proud. I thought I could handle it. After all, I had always believed that hard work was enough. The city was bigger than anything I had ever imagined. Tall buildings, crowded buses, people rushing everywhere. It felt like a different world. I shared a small apartment with 2 other students. We weren't friends at first, just roommates. But one of them, a boy named Arif, quickly became close to me. He was confident, funny, and seemed to know everyone. He came from a wealthy family, but he never acted proud or distant. In fact, he was generous, and too generous. He often treated us to lunch or covered the rent when I was short on money. I felt grateful. He'd say, "Don't worry, brother. What are friends for?" At first I tried to pay him back, but he always refused. "You can treat me when you start earning," he'd laugh. I thought I had found a real friend. Slowly, I started depending on him more than I should have. He introduced me to his circle, people who wore expensive clothes, drove nice cars, and spent money like it meant nothing. They were kind to me, or at least that's what I thought. Whenever they invited me somewhere, I'd go, to restaurants, parties, trips. Arif always said, "Come on, don't worry about money. You're with me," and I believed him. But soon my grades started to slip. I spent more time going out and less time studying. I also noticed small things, like how Arif would sometimes ask me for favors. "Can you write my essay?" "You're good at English," he'd say. Or, "Can you cover for me in class tomorrow?" I didn't think much of it. He had helped me so much, I felt I owed him. I told myself it was just friendship. But slowly those favors grew bigger. One day he asked me to sign a form for him, something about a library book. He said he forgot his ID and needed to return it in my name. Without thinking, I agreed. A few weeks later, I got a message from the university office. Apparently, several expensive library books were missing, all under my name. I tried to explain, but the librarian didn't believe me. The books were never returned, and the total fine was huge. I was shocked. I ran to Arif's room to ask him about it, but he wasn't there. His bed was empty. His phone was off. He had disappeared. That was the first time I felt true fear. I couldn't pay the fine. I barely had enough money for food. When the university suspended my library access, I felt like my whole world was falling apart. I didn't want to tell my parents. They had sacrificed everything to send me here. I couldn't break their hearts. For days, I didn't eat properly. I skipped classes. I avoided people. I felt like a fool. One evening, I was walking back to my apartment when I saw Arif at a cafe, laughing, surrounded by the same rich friends. My blood boiled. I walked straight to him and asked, "Why did you use my name? Why did you lie to me?" Everyone went silent. Arif looked at me calmly, almost amused. He said, "Relax, brother. It's just books. I'll return them soon." I told him the library had already charged me. He smiled and said, "Then you should be more careful about what you sign." His tone was cold, and in that moment I realized I was never his friend. I was just someone he could use, I shouted. "After everything I did for you? After all the help, all the loyalty?" He shrugged. "Nothing is free, man," he said, sipping his coffee. "You enjoyed the food, the parties, the good times. Now it's your turn to pay." Those words hit me like a knife. I stood there, frozen, as everyone around laughed quietly. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream, but instead I just walked away. My legs were shaking. That night I packed my things and left the apartment. I couldn't stay another second in that place. I moved into a cheap hostel near campus. It was small, noisy, and uncomfortable. But it was mine, So that's the situation I was in. Betrayed, broke, and completely alone. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and think, what would you have done in my place? Would you have confronted him again? Reported him? Or just moved on? Because I didn't know what to do. I was lost. Weeks passed. I worked small jobs and tutoring kids, cleaning tables, anything I could find. Slowly, I managed to pay off the fine. It took months. I barely slept, but I didn't give up. One day, while I was working as a waiter in a small cafe, something unexpected happened. Arif walked in. He looked different, tired, anxious. He didn't recognize me at first, but when he did, his face turned pale. He ordered coffee but couldn't look me in the eye. After a moment, he said quietly, "I didn't think you'd still be here." I just smiled. "Yeah," I said. "Some of us don't get to run away." He looked down, ashamed. He told me he had dropped out of university. His father had stopped sending him money. Apparently, he had been lying to everyone, even his friends. When they found out, they turned their backs on him. He was broke just like I had been. He said, "I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have used you like that." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I had imagined this conversation so many times, yelling at him, demanding justice. But now seeing him like that, I just felt empty. I told him, "You're right. Nothing is free. You taught me that." He nodded slowly, then left. I never saw him again. After that day, my life started to change. I worked harder than ever. I finished my studies, got a small job as an English teacher, and started saving. It wasn't easy, but every step I took felt earned. I learned to value things differently. Friendship, time, trust. I realized that real kindness doesn't come with hidden costs, and I learned that if something seems too easy, too perfect, it probably isn't real. Now, whenever my students ask me about life in the city, I smile and tell them this story. I tell them that life gives lessons in strange ways. Some are painful, but all are necessary. I tell them that nothing is truly free, not money, not success, not even trust. Everything has a price, and sometimes that price is heartbreak. But it's also how we grow. I often think about my mother's words and how wise she was. Nothing in this world is free. Back then I thought it sounded harsh. Now I see it differently. She wasn't warning me to stop being kind. She was teaching me to be careful, to understand that kindness should be given, not sold, and that trust must be earned. If you've ever been betrayed or taken advantage of, I hope my story reminds you that pain can be a teacher. It doesn't matter how much you lose. What matters is how much you learn. So if you've listened this far, tell me in the comments, do you think I was wrong for trusting him? Would you have done the same thing? Like this video if you believe trust is earned, not given. Subscribe for more stories like this one, and share your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Thank you for listening to my story. I'll see you all in the next one.